Alright, so today we'll be going over how the basics of processing. So first step, you gotta download processing. Now based on what you have, you will download it. So I'm using Windows, so you click on Windows. Now you download it to wherever you want. I've already downloaded it, so it's right here on my desktop. Well, it's not on my desktop actually, but basically it'll give you a zip file. You unzip the file and you'll get processing. Now you open up processing and you'll see this. Now you're like, well, what do I do here? Now let's go over what you do. So first step, up at the very top, as syntax, you always want to put your instance variables, or you could be calling them variables here. They're global variables that will work throughout your whole entire program. So let's make int x and y, int height, int rectangle height, because we're going to make a rectangle later, and int rectangle width. Right. So you see, I have not initialized any of these variables. Alright, I've not initialized any of these variables, and this is very important, as you don't want to initialize the variables up here unless these variables will never change. And my variables, the x and y locations of my rectangle, will change. So now we'll go into the two main methods that you have to implement in every one of your processing applications. So first, it's called the void setup. Oops. It's ugly. All right. And then there is void draw. Now these are pretty self-explanatory in the name. Setup kind of sets up your program. You initialized the basic variables that you want. You set up the size of the program. So you need setup. So we'll make the size 800 by 800. So our application, or the thing that will run, will be size 800 by 800. The window will be 800 by 800. We can make the x equal to 0, y equal to 0, rectangle height, that can be equal to 100, and rectangle width equal to 100. So we're just setting it up. Now we run it, and we see, there we go. We have a window size 800 by 800, but we're not drawing anything on it. And that's what this next method is for. Now this method draws on the screen. That's with quotation marks. Basically what it does is it continuously runs through whatever is written between these two brackets and continuously runs them. It just continuously runs whatever is in here. So if you're drawing a rectangle, it'll continually draw a rectangle. Alright, so it will go through this 30 times a second. So it's very fast, and you will be able to draw whatever you want. So we'll start off with a basic method, we could call it, and this is called rect. And what it does, very self-explanatory, draws a rectangle. So you might be like, well, how do I draw a rectangle where I want it to? This is where all our variables previously came in. So what you'll want to do is, you see down here it says rect float 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 float. So basically this function, excuse me, I said method back then. So this function, you need to put in the x and the y, then the rect width, then rect height of the rectangle. So this is the order for most things. This is the order for ellipses that we will get into later, and it's always the x and the y and the width and the height of the thing you're drawing. This could also work for pictures too. So we draw it, and we'll see we have a rectangle, or here a square because the width and height are the same, at 0, 0. And you also may notice that the x and y start at the top left corner of the rectangle. And this is very important. So from now on, you must remember that the x and y is for the top right corner of whatever you're drawing. And it starts from the top right corner and then moves to the right with the width and moves down with the height. You also, a very, very important thing that you need to pay attention to, and I'll do this in Paint, is that processing's X and Y locations are slightly different from what we learned in math. So we learned in math that X is down here, Y is here. And as X increases, it goes this way, towards the right. As Y increases, it goes up. Well, this is similar to processing, but not exactly. In processing, oops, move that away. In processing, as X increases, it still goes to the right. As Y increases, it goes down. This is very important. So this is why, when we look up here, Y0 is up here. Alright? Another thing, so you might be like, well, I don't want to have my X and Y at the top right corner. Well, where else can I put the X and Y start at? It could be in the center of the rectangle. So you can do rect mode, oops, center, and now the X and Y coordinates will start in the center of the rectangle. So you see here, we only see a quarter of the rectangle because the rest is off the screen. So I can make this 100 by 100, and you see we have a rectangle with center mode on at 100, 100, width and height at 100. Now you may think, well, this draw, what is it even doing? All I see is a rectangle. It's not really doing much. And that is very true. This rectangle, it just stands still because we're never changing the X and Y location, nor have we changed the width and height. So it's constantly drawing on the screen. It's just that you don't see it. So I'll allow you to see a rectangle being constantly drawn on the screen. An easy way to do this is drawing a rectangle at the mouse X and mouse Y of mouse X and mouse Y, or the X and Y coordinates of my mouse. So these are variables that processing provides for you. This is just a variable. You can't change it yourself. Processing automatically changes this variable. So when you see pink, you'll know that it is a variable that is provided by processing. So if we run here, you'll see that it will draw a rectangle at X and Y, and the X and Y coordinates of my mouse. So we see here, you see it is constantly drawing. It is constantly drawing a rectangle, or here a square, at my X and Y coordinates. So you see, if I move my mouse extremely fast, it's not like extremely fast, but it is fast enough for our games. Similar to how animations, you have something constantly drawing, so it looks like it's moving, but it's actually not. So here we have it just following my mouse. And you might think, well, in my game, I want it to move by itself. I only want to see one object. I don't want to see its trails that it's leaving behind when it's drawing it. Now, how do we fix this? And an easy fix for this is just draw a background. Now we'll make the background black here. And now you see, now we only see one square. And you may be wondering, now why is this? So basically what happens is draws whatever it's written. And it first draws the background, which is what we see here. It draws black. Then it draws a rectangle on top of it. So you always want to put background at the first line of code after draw, because that's the background. So whatever goes in the back, you write first. I know it's kind of confusing, but you think it logically. It first draws the background, then draws everything else. Right? So that's why you put background in the back. So it draws the background, then draws a rectangle. So it draws over the rectangle that was previously made. So it looks like there's a rectangle. It gives the illusion that there's a rectangle that's following my mouse. Now, I don't like this, and I never use the center mode because it's not very convenient for later purposes. So now we just have it in the corner. Now you might think, well, I don't want my background just to be black. So if you only provide one instance variable, or not one parameter into this background function, then you can only type in from 0 to 255. So 0 is black, as we just saw, and 255 is white. Yeah, see? Now, you might think, oh, well, Corn, I want some different colors. Well, that is pretty simple. So now we gotta enter in RGBT values. So, gotta add 3 parameters for this. So we can add R, so we'll just make it red. So we have 250 red, and the rest is the green will be, there'll be 0 green in this and 0 blue in this. So this should be all red. And as you see here, it's all red. Now, you might be thinking, well, how do I get any other color? And an easy way to do this is just test it, or there's something called Adobe Color Wheel, where you go on and you can see what colors in the RGB scale will make what type of color. So you can synthesize colors to make the color that you want for your background. Now you might think, well, I want my rectangle to be colored. Then I'll be like, well, there's also an easy fix to that. Now this is called fill. So I want to fill it. And same concept. You first off, if you only put in 1 parameter, then you only go from 0 black to 255 as white. Now if you wanted to add color, you'll add the same parameters, the RGB, with commas between each int. So we'll have I don't know, we'll have some random colors. So it'd be 12, 15, and 19, and we'll fill. Then, oh, why is it black? Well, I guess this makes black. So we'll fill in the color of the rectangle. Now, let me make this pretty. 255. And now we get green. Alright? So it fills it with green. Now you might notice that there is a black border around my rectangle. Now what if you don't want this border? Well, this thing called no stroke. And what no stroke does is it makes it so that there's no strokes around anything you draw. Actually, I should put this in setup because I don't want it to be constantly calling no stroke. Now you can also have fill. Yeah, you can also have no fill, which makes it so that I don't fill anything and you don't see anything appear. So what if I want to change the color of my stroke instead of having no stroke? And that is also an easy fix, which you call this thing called stroke. And the same rules as background and fill for the colors. We'll just do this where if you have in 1 parameter, 0 to 255 is from black to white, and then if you add 3 parameters, then it'll be the RGB color scale. Alright, that is a tongue twister. So now that we have this, you may notice, voila! Wait, what the? Am I going in I think? Huh? Maybe I'm doing something wrong? Did I? Oh, that's why. I deleted my rect width. That makes sense. So, I didn't actually have a width anymore. So there we go. We have a rectangle at width, at my mouse X, mouse Y, width 100, height 100. Right? So now, that concludes basics. So this is only the basics, and I'll see you in the next video.